Countdown sequence initiated.
Transfer of data is complete.
Initiating shutdown sequence.
Sean Fanning couldn't bear the thought of another week of class. It was January of 1999, and he was stuck in the car with his cousin, heading back to Northeastern University in Boston after spending the long weekend at home. But instead of attending lectures, he wanted to be back in his room, working on a software project he'd started the previous semester. As the car pulled up to the dorm, he made a split-second decision. He wasn't going back. School would have to wait. He had work to do.
When I was 18 years old and hadn't really experienced much at the time, even though it made sense intellectually that it would be widely interesting, it was really hard to fathom the idea of it growing at the level that it did.
For 6 months, Fanning slaved over a computer, and on June 1st, 1999, he unleashed his creation upon the world.
Files accessed.
A free software program that allowed people to share music over the internet. It didn't take long for the service to max out the capacity of his Pentium 100 Linux server. That program was Napster. Little did anyone know at the time, the launch of Napster marked the beginning of a digital revolution. Hank Berry's firm was one of the first to recognize Sean Fanning.
A lot of people don't know this, but the first version of Napster was pretty primitive, but it was the first software program that Sean Fanning ever wrote. Every piece of code.
Over the next 2 years, more than 90 million people downloaded Fanning's creation. At its height, before the service was effectively shut down in July 2001, more than 250 million songs would be downloaded in an average weekend. This caused an instant headache for the music industry.
Hey, 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 here I go now, here I go into new days.
The music industry was not amused. They weren't getting paid for any of those file transfers. Big-name acts like Metallica and Dr. Dre said Napster amounted to little more than thievery. The recording industry called Napster a giant online pirate bazaar, saying it contributes to copyright infringement. In December of 1999, the Recording Industry Association of America sued Napster and demanded a permanent injunction to stop it from operating. Kerry Sherman became president of the RIAA in 2001. He was in-house counsel and oversaw legal strategy for the RIAA at the time of the Napster lawsuit.
At that point, the industry was in a position of trying to play catch-up because all of the music was available illegally in one place in a very widely disseminated software platform.
A legal battle ensued. In the end, Napster was overwhelmed and forced into bankruptcy. At the center of the legal chaos, of course, the young Sean Fanning.
You know, I was always hopeful that it would inspire other technologies and or that it would evolve into something that would last and survive and continue to provide access to the breadth of selection that it did at its peak. But, it was something where I was just really grateful to be involved in it.
Although Napster was only in operation for a little over 2 years, it had a profound effect on the technology community. Everything from internet service providers to consumer electronics companies. Broadband adoption exploded as consumers jumped on the downloading bandwagon.
Broadband penetration in the United States more than doubled in the period that Napster was operating. In fact, Rupert Murdoch once said, without Napster, there is no internet.
But perhaps no company benefited from Napster and the rise of music downloading more so than Apple Inc.
Without Napster, there is no iPod, period.
In 2003, Apple unveiled the iTunes Music Store, where users can pay to legally download music. It has since become the largest seller of music in the United States. And although record companies struggle to catch up to this digital revolution, Apple founder Steve Jobs saw it as an opportunity. By combining the iPod with iTunes, Apple reordered the musical landscape. Mr. Jobs is now, arguably, the most powerful man in the music business.
The fact that they're probably 80% of the market is a testament to just what a good job they did.
But exactly what is the Napster legacy? 10 years later, 95% of the music that is downloaded from the internet is pirated. Although 5 billion songs have been sold through iTunes, digital sales make up only 20% of the recording industry's annual revenues, and the fight against piracy continues. As for Sean Fanning, he's still building software. His latest venture, Rupture, sold to video game maker Electronic Arts for $30 million. Though he's since shifted his focus, he can still see the Napster influence all around him.
In hindsight, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff I would have done differently knowing what I know now, but it was too radically different from the traditional model, and it was going to take time for the record industry, and more importantly, the individual executives in those companies to know where they fit within this new model.
As for how the world will remember Sean Fanning,
I'm never really concerned with that, especially as it relates to a lot of the press and attention. I mean, I was writing software because I loved writing software. If anything, definitely caused me some stress over the first few years of Napster. So it's not something I think about. I just tend to focus on doing stuff that I enjoy, that I feel good about, and I just love creating things. And wherever that takes me, it takes me.